This story is titled, My Fiancé Never Stands Up for Me When His Family Disrespects Me and Says I Should Just Ignore It. I'm Rachel. I'm 34 years old, and up until recently, I thought I had finally found my forever person. Stephen and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for one. He was kind, thoughtful, and the kind of man who made people feel at ease. I loved him. God, I loved him. I thought he was the person who would always have my back, no matter what. But I was wrong. The first time his family made a comment about me, I brushed it off. His mother, Linda, had this way of smiling while delivering sharp words. "Oh, Rachel, dear, I thought Stephen always went for more traditional women. You know, the ones who cook and keep a home." Stephen laughed it off. I remember looking at him, waiting for him to say something, anything to defend me. But he just squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "Let it go." So I let it go. I told myself it was just one comment, just one moment, that his mother didn't mean anything by it. But then there was another. And another. "You don't have kids yet? My Stephen needs a big family. I hope you're not making him wait too long. Are you sure you're the right match for him? He's always been ambitious. Women like you sometimes hold men like him back." "Oh, you work? Well, as long as it doesn't take time away from my son's needs." It was relentless. Every dinner, every holiday, every single moment spent around them was like stepping onto a battlefield, one where I wasn't allowed to fight back. And Stephen? He never said a word. Every time I tried to talk to him about it, he would sigh and say, "Babe, that's just how they are. They don't mean anything by it. Just ignore it." Ignore it. Like my feelings didn't matter. Like the constant disrespect was just something I had to live with. But I couldn't ignore it. Not anymore. Because one night, his mother crossed a line. And this time, I wasn't going to let it go. We were at his parents' house for dinner. The tension was thick, as always. I had learned to steel myself, to put on a polite smile even when their words cut. But this time, Linda wasn't just making side comments. This time, she turned to Stephen, right in front of me, and said something that made my blood run cold. "Stephen, darling, are you sure about this wedding? You could do so much better." Silence. I stared at her, waiting for Stephen to speak, to defend me, to tell his mother that she was out of line. But he just laughed, like it was a joke, like my worth was something to be debated at the dinner table. I felt something inside me snap. I pushed back my chair and stood up. The whole table went quiet. Linda looked amused, like she was enjoying the show. I turned to Stephen, my voice shaking. "Are you really going to sit there and say nothing?" He looked at me, startled. "Rachel, don't do this here." "Do what?" My voice rose. "Stand up for myself? Because clearly you won't." His father sighed, shaking his head. His sister rolled her eyes. And Linda? She just smirked. "See, Stephen? This is exactly what I mean. She's dramatic. She doesn't belong in this family." I felt the weight of her words settle over me. I turned to Stephen, giving him one last chance. One last chance to prove that I mattered to him. But he only ran a hand through his hair and muttered, "Rachel, please, just let it go." That was it. That was all I needed to hear. I grabbed my coat, turned on my heel, and walked out the door. Stephen didn't follow me, and that told me everything I needed to know. I drove aimlessly through the streets, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. My chest felt tight, my mind racing with a single devastating truth. Stephen would never stand up for me. Not to his mother, not to his family, not even when I was being humiliated in front of him. How had I let it get this far? I pulled into the parking lot of my best friend Lisa's apartment. I didn't even text her. I just knocked on the door. When she opened it and saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She just pulled me inside, wrapped me in a hug, and let me cry. After a while, she handed me a glass of wine and sat across from me on the couch. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the comments, the insults, the way his family had treated me like I was nothing. I told her about tonight, how his mother had practically told him to leave me, and he had laughed like it was funny. Lisa's expression darkened. "Rachel, this is not okay." "I know." My voice cracked. "But I love him." She exhaled sharply. "I know you do. But love isn't supposed to feel like this. Love isn't supposed to make you question your worth." I stared at my wine glass, my hands shaking. I just kept hoping he would stand up for me. That one day he'd finally say something. Lisa reached over and took my hand. But he didn't, and he won't. Her words sank deep, settling in the pit of my stomach like a heavy stone. I had been waiting, hoping, making excuses. But Lisa was right. He wasn't going to change. And I couldn't keep pretending that love was enough to make up for the way he let his family tear me down. I didn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned on Lisa's couch, replaying every moment of our relationship, Every red flag I had ignored. And by morning, I knew what I had to do. Stephen was waiting for me when I got home. Rachel, he started, his voice soft. I was worried about you. I dropped my keys on the counter, crossing my arms. Are you? His brows furrowed. Of course I was. I let out a bitter laugh. Funny, because you didn't seem too worried when your mother was tearing me apart last night. He sighed. Rachel, I told you that's just how she is. You can't take it personally. I snapped. I can't take it personally? My voice shook with anger. Stephen, your mother humiliated me in front of you. She told you to your face that you could do better than me, and you laughed. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking exhausted. I didn't want to start a fight. Start a fight? I repeated, my heart pounding. Defending me isn't starting a fight, it's basic respect. He opened his mouth, then closed it. And that's when I knew. I took a deep breath. Stephen, I can't marry you. His eyes widened. Rachel, come on, you don't mean that. I do, I whispered. I have spent years trying to fit into your world, trying to be the bigger person. But the truth is, your family doesn't respect me. And you let them. His face fell. Rachel, please, don't do this. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I deserve someone who stands up for me, someone who doesn't ask me to shrink myself to keep the peace. Tears welled in his eyes. I love you. I smiled sadly. I love you too, but love isn't enough. And for the first time in 4 years, I chose myself. I walked away, and I didn't look back. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories like this. Your support means everything.